Okay. We're good. We're good? Can you guys hear me in the back?
Yeah.
Yes. Good. Okay. I will try to use my coaching voice. Okay, well, thank you guys all for joining. We have two panels today. This one is the English panel. This is a collaborative effort with Onside and Mind the Waves. So first I want to thank Sonia and Alexa for doing all the behind the scenes work and getting everything together. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Camille. I'm an Olympic swimmer, and I recently co-founded Mind the Waves, which is, I guess, a platform and a space to talk about mental well-being, especially around the youth in Hong Kong. We really just started, so we're very green, but a big thing is about community and engaging with the community. And first step is really normalizing conversations on this topic. And so today with these lovely speakers, it'll be about mental health in sports, with athletes, fitness industry, and I'm really looking forward to a great conversation. We've already been talking a lot. So I want to introduce you all. First we have Jen, born and raised in Hong Kong. She is a health and fitness coach at the gym. Gym? Gym, yes. The gym. And she has played a lot of sports, rugby, netball, and is a bikini competitive athlete. Is that how you say it?
I guess I've done a few bikini competitions.
Yeah. Yes. And training or preparing for one.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, born and raised in Hong Kong, studied sports science at HKU, and now has been working over 13 years as a personal trainer, and working with people from all different walks of life. So welcome. Thank you. And we have Hugo, who is a professional rugby sevens player and also a co-founder of the gym, the Tin Shed. He moved to Hong Kong when he was 7, went back overseas to study economics and politics, and then came back to Hong Kong to follow his aspirations of being a rugby player and chasing the Olympic dream. Career highlights are Asian Games gold in 2018, and then finally making his Hong Kong Sevens debut in April, just a few months ago. Yeah. So welcome. And we have Jess here, who is the APAC leader of the New Normal charity, and co-founded the Hong Kong chapter. They believe that no one should feel alone in whatever they're going through, and so they do a lot of peer-to-peer support and community initiatives. One of the things she was just telling me about is using fitness and sport as a way to support people going through mental health issues. So welcome. Thank you all for being here. The big question today is how to prioritize and cultivate mental health as sports people, athletes, or people that are working in the fitness industry. And so I wanted to start the conversation by asking you guys to share any personal experiences or stories about where your mental health was either affected or it affected the work that you do in whichever, as a sports person, as a trainer, your work as a charity. So, Jen? Okay, you go.
Yeah, when you sent that question through, I actually really liked it because I really think it's a priority, and mental health, for example, I know if my mental game is not right, my performance isn't right. So I know if I can mentally get my game right, then I'm going into tournament, I can kind of just flow, I can play well. And so I really like the idea of it is a priority, and if you can get it right, then I think everything else really just follows. My game goes, and so if it is a priority, I think people need to get away from these stigmas. If you're looking after yourself, it shouldn't be deep selfish as well. And then I know not much has really developed in my game physically in the last few years, but mentally it's come a long way. And that's just from listening to the old guys, listening to the young guys, and also being careful of like what information I absorb. There's so many distractions out there, but you know, I'm listening to some really good information on the podcast, surrounding the whole mental health chat, and just like trying to avoid some of the obstacles that my teammates have fell in, and just other people and stuff like that. And then how I cultivate it, well, I probably cultivate it a lot differently to something like my sister might, or you know, something like Doug might. I like going fishing. I live in Checo. I'm in the sea every day. I think it's just finding what, you know, fits you. It might be sitting in a room meditating, doing some breath work. I know for me it's, you know, spear fishing and doing some crazy things outside of sport, and that's what switches me off. That's when I can decompress, de-stress, and get away from it. Because as a professional sevens player, it is a full pressure environment, especially when you're playing in the Asian Games, and as you know, or trying to get on the Olympic stage. Tensions do run high, so off the field, I really do try and get away from the game, even though I'm probably still thinking about it most of the time. But yeah, that's probably mine.
Yeah, I feel like there was like so much to unpack just in that answer. Especially as athletes, I read this quote that was like, you know, performance is 10% physical and 90% mental, and I feel like a lot of the times the training and the recovery doesn't necessarily reflect those percentages. And I'm just curious to know for you, Hugo, if there was anything that happened or that a challenge that you faced that made you realize like, oh, I need to really start thinking about that mental component.
Yeah, of course. Like as Jen will know, with rugby, you're almost guaranteed to get one pretty severe injury per season, and I've dislocated my ankle, I've ruptured my ACL, and then more recently I've had pretty traumatic nerve injury, and all of these injuries and setbacks really like they're probably my most impactful and poorest my mental health being. And I know most recently with my nerve trouble is whether or not I was able to get back on the field, and that probably put me in my lowest in terms of my sporting career. And I started pushing away my family, my friends, and because I almost felt like I was such a negative on them as well that I just didn't want to be around them. Whereas that's the complete opposite of how it should be. And I've definitely learned that from my most recent injuries. Was stop. You know, that's where you need people around you the most. Don't push them away and let them in. And rugby is fantastic at that. You know, it's full of life lessons, and as I said to you earlier, it does help having teammates who are with you every day and seeing you grow and develop as a man. So that's a plus. Whereas I can imagine as an individual athlete, it may be harder because you have to reach out even further to share your problems and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I feel like it makes it even more rewarding when you, like you said, you made your debut. So
yeah, it's brilliant.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so Jen, you've had many different sports, so you probably have a lot of different experiences.
Yeah, most of my sports have been team sports, like Hugo alluded to. It's that camaraderie, that family spirit is really helpful. You kind of take it for granted. Almost like it's just so ingrained in the nature of the sport. But as a fitness coach, my job and what I've been doing for 13 years is it's interesting working with so many different people to get to a place now where you really understand that it all comes down to the same things. You know, everybody comes to the gym to work on their physical health and maintain their physical health, and that seems to be at the forefront of most people's life. But having to remind them that mental health is just as important. You have to look after it the same way you do physical health, and it does. You get good days and bad days, just like physical health, and be open to those conversations. And I think the gym is a very interesting place to be because people are coming in quite vulnerable, and there's a lot of trust there, and it's a very intimate relationship that you build with your clients to create a safe space for them to be uncomfortable, just being in fitness, but it takes away. So there's a lot of I think there's so many positives of being part of sport that carry through to your day-to-day life, you know, having to surrender to defeat, whatever that might be, and to navigate through it and to practice patience and awareness and understand how to pull yourself through certain things, whether it's injuries or mental stress of some way. So it's it's a constant conversation and it's a constant evolution and a constant learning, which is, for me, it's really interesting.
Yeah. And I'm sure your years of being an athlete helps you get that understanding and perspective. So when you're coaching,
Yes.
and also put yourself
Yes.
in their shoes.
To understand that, you know, you can't always have it your way, and if it doesn't go your way, you have to deal with it. You have to find a way to accept that defeat, whatever it might be, and get on with it, and to turn to people to talk to and figure out a way. I think there's so many life lessons in sport. So it's a common conversation that's been happening in the past little while where you can kind of see when people haven't been exposed to sport in their lives before, and they reach certain points in their life where all of a sudden things aren't going their way and they're used to it, and you know, we don't have or you lack a little bit the life skills in order to figure that out, which I think sport provides a lot of, whether you're aware of it or not at the time. So I think it's good having these conversations as well to bridge that gap. Right?
Wow. Great, thank you. Yes. Okay, and on to you, Jess.
The non-athlete in the house.
So yes, non-athlete, but working in this space. With charity, and then we were just talking earlier, and she was talking about how using fitness and sport as a way to talk about these topics. So maybe you can share a bit more about that.
Yeah, so like essentially we're mainly a free peer-to-peer support charity in the community. What we've found is that sometimes attending a peer-to-peer support group for the very first time, when you're sat in a room full of people all looking at you and you're getting tense and waiting to speak, that can feel a little bit overwhelming to people. So what we've tried to do is create more informal community initiatives, whether that's a run club, climb club, a walking club, yoga, stuff that we've done with the gym before, where people can come together and they can broach the topic in what feels like a safer space to them. You know, sometimes the best time to talk to someone is when you're side by side, you're on a walk, you're driving in the car, it's not dead on, like looking into someone's eyes, saying what's going on with your mental health, which can be a bit overwhelming. So we did it to provide informal spaces, but also to try and break down some of the perceived barriers to fitness that people have in Hong Kong. I was telling you before, the things that we've been told by people is common. I have no time, like I have a really busy job, I commute, I have kids, how can I possibly fit this into my day? We hear people say fitness is very elite in Hong Kong, like you can possibly step foot in this gym, not too intimidated. People will say, you go to the gym to get jacked as a guy or thin as a girl, I don't want to do that, so why would I go there? There's no awareness of the other tangible benefits of exercise can be. Of course it's expensive, to be real, like gyms in Hong Kong are expensive. So all of our initiatives are either free or donation based. The last one we did was like 6 weeks long. 174 people took part and 64 free for financial hardship, so about a third joined for free. So it's just, and we've seen people kind of go from that into our peer support groups, then create their own groups on the side. So the community aspect has been really great on Hong Kong, and I think the fitness industry here is so supportive of that. We did a project with Jen at the gym, they're fantastic. So very supportive of community going fitness.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think too, physical exercise also helps with your mental health. So it's like a 2-in-1. Like I know if I don't even just move my body, then my mental health, I just feel a lot more stressed. And for me, it's definitely like go-to is going for a walk. So which brings up the next question, which is about how do you cope with challenges? So whether it's, especially with you, like what you would tell people, what are the, I guess, your top 3 kind of go-to when you're dealing with stuff?
Yeah, okay. So in all honesty, old me, terribly. It involved a lot of alcohol, a lot of cigarettes, and avoiding people who know me and pull me out of my shit. So that was old me, just to be real. New me now, so I think what we can all do is become aware of the signs in deterioration in either ourselves or people around us, knowing what those things are for us specifically. So for me, my sleep is terrible. I isolate myself. I get quite physical symptoms like tension in my jaw as well. So really getting to know what those things are in us and in the people around us. Like I was joking with my friend earlier, my boyfriend has me on share on my Apple Watch. I'm not advocating stalking your partner on Apple Watch, by the way. But if I've done like 6% of my daily target, he's like, Jess, like what's happening? So I think just knowing the signs and the people around you. So increasing our mental health literacy where we can about those signs and symptoms. Creating safe spaces for people. So being that person, showing yourself through role modeling to be somebody who approach to talk about hard topics, using destigmatizing language. Staying out of judgment. I think if we can be that for each other, knowing who those people are in your life, I can probably point to a couple of people to me, but also a therapist, a support group. So knowing the signs, knowing your safe spaces and where to go, and then forcing you to do the things that you know make you well, not just when you're unwell, but doing them during the time. So it's been sleep hygiene, social connection, fitness for sure as well for me. And nutrition, and those are things like when I can see myself going down a deteriorating path, I'm like, right, get yourself to the vegetable shop, or you're cooking for yourself, call your mom, tell her what's going on. So yeah, just making that list for yourself, the things that you know make you well, through smart.
Yeah, no, that really resonates with me. I think it's like when people ask me that, I always feel like it's a very individualized response, because I think everybody has a different way of, dealing with things and reacting to things. So a big thing is really recognizing what works for you. So thank you for sharing that. Hugo, I know you said earlier you do things maybe a bit differently, and you go spearfishing and being in nature. Is there anything else that you do to cope with when you're traveling?
I think Jess could be right. I know when, as an athlete, we always talk about getting the big thing right, and that's, your sleep and your nutrition, and then, after that it's your mobility and your ice baths, the saunas, blah, blah, all the extras. And like, if those two things are going well for me, then I can start enjoying the little things. And then the little things for me are, at the moment, we pot once a week in Stanley. Like, I personally just love trying new things. And, whatever sticks, and whatever doesn't. And like, whatever fine with these new things, like whether it be pottery or, painting or volunteering at a charity, like these things for me, they fill my bucket, and then the people there also fill my bucket. So I guess it's like a matter of like, how full can I fill the bucket after I've got the big things right? And yeah, I think that works for me really well, and I'm just good at, I think, trying new things. Like, and that's another thing is like, don't get bogged down in the same routine of just like going through the motions. Like, step out your comfort zone and lean into your fears, because I think you'll find things that you actually don't think you enjoy that you will really enjoy. And yeah, that is a big thing for me. But yeah, if anyone wants to go spearfishing in Czech, let me know. But yeah, for me, I know being out in nature is massive. As I said, go for a walk, and that's free of cost. Other things are maybe not. Yeah. Stuff like getting in the sea and going for a walk are things that you should be doing every day. Like, especially it's like non-negotiables, right? And yeah, that's just going to be big things, like. So, the little things laughing as well.
Oh, I love those. I love hearing what other people like to do. So, Jen.
Yeah. Sleep is a huge thing. I totally agree. Sleep is our emotional first aid. So when you do lack it, you'll be more sensitive, and that's something I do try to remind myself on certain days where I'm like, okay, I know I didn't have good sleep, so I know I'm going to feel a little bit more sensitive today. So kind of cut myself a little bit of slack so you know that that's just a part of it. For me personally, I also like getting out in nature, going for walks, which we're very lucky to be in Hong Kong to do. I like playing the piano. I find it very meditative. It's very it's meditative. But I think a big thing that I also talk to my clients about to try and get them to do is create a shift in perspective. Because a lot of the time when we are in a negative headspace, we kind of get tunnel vision, we're in a hole. So it's important for us to try and pull ourselves out of that to gain a greater perspective, to understand where we are on this journey, and it kind of takes a little bit of that overwhelming feeling away to understand that this is just temporary, and then you can focus on the smaller things that will help you in the day-to-day to then achieve greater things or overcome greater things and things like that. So I think perspective and gaining perspective, reminding yourself that you need to do that is the thing I'm trying to do as well.
Oh, really great answers. And I think like what's really refreshing is to hear like how self-aware all of you guys are. And I think that's like a really, really important step is the self-awareness piece and being able to, you know, I guess gauge like how you're feeling and what emotions you're feeling, and then knowing what tools or resources or support you need when you're getting into these different spaces, I guess. I think one of the things that I've heard a lot, and this might be a bit of a harder question to answer, but for people that maybe don't yet have that kind of emotional awareness, like, and they might think of mental health and mental being a little bit like it's overwhelming, like I don't even know where to start. Like, what would you say is like a first step into, you know, helping somebody maybe get a bit more self-aware, or I guess identifying what may work or help them?
I like to, what works for me sometimes is I'll write a letter, or I'll talk to myself out loud, but it sounds less strange to write a letter. So if you're being troubled with a particular issue, maybe it's with a particular person or there's something, and you know, your mind gets quite turbulent and there's a lot going around, I find it quite helpful to write a letter to somebody, to try and articulate what's going through your mind, and through that process, whether you end up sending it to somebody or not, comes later, but through that process, you're able to work through the thoughts. You kind of slow down and compartmentalize your thoughts a little bit, so you can maybe identify certain things, and maybe through that you can let go of certain things already, or other things get highlighted that maybe need more attention and you need to address differently. But I think that's and it's also personal and private. You don't have to to anybody, you don't have to talk to anybody just yet, but having that conversation with yourself is a good starting point. I try to encourage somebody to do.
Yeah.
That's all. It's very like fun in the head, but like education. Like there's many free resources. It's hard to know where to go. So I think more can be done to signpost with resources. Yeah, but there's many resources if you want to learn a little more around mental health, about how to have the conversation. So I think we all feel a little bit afraid to start those conversations with people around us in case we upset someone, or they think we're being nosy, all these reasons. But the more we can find places where we can practice having some of these difficult conversations, the easier it feels. And when you actually do it, 9 times out of 10, it's nowhere near as awkward as you played it out to be in your head when you actually do it. So whether that's within your friendship groups and peer support spaces, if you feel apprehensive, so one thing that's kind of happened in our peer support groups is people come and they say, you know, I really want to talk to my dad about this thing that's going on with me. And they'll come and they'll practice having the conversation with us, and the peer support group then take it home to the family. So I guess, yeah, like giving people spaces where they don't feel like they're going to mess up or do something wrong, so people can practice, and then just starting as like possible people. I felt so full of hope when I met all the kids yesterday and the way they were speaking about things. So yeah, I'd say looking for resources for education, but then also just having a go, and like not always being afraid if there's going to be wrong, because most of us are empathetic people, and if you come from a place of empathy, curiosity, it's not the time. You want to sort of people there and give them permission to speak about it. So,
yeah. Okay. Camille, anything to add to that? You said trying new things. Yeah.
I think just like on top of that, it's like really identifying what your true values are, and then as an athlete it's pretty clear we're building towards a certain tournament, you know, and it's like, okay, well, does this fit in with, you know, going out Friday, Saturday night, boozing, you know, every weekend, and then feeling like rubbish on Sunday is going to affect my training. I think I carry that through into not just sport but life in general. It's like, does it align with my values? If not, I'm quite good at just removing it and filling it with something else, which I said, I don't want things taken away from that bucket. I want to try to fill it up as much as possible. And for example, alcohol, nowadays just doesn't really do it for me. It actually works inversely for me. And it's just like identifying those things and then replacing it with these new things that I'm trying to push people to try, I guess. That might actually have a massive positive on you. And that's a big thing for me. And that's not even an awareness thing, again, it's just going out there and taking a lead and trying new things.
I think it's a good, what you're saying is you're taking accountability, you're taking responsibility. That's an important thing for people to do, and it can sometimes be come across as a harsh conversation to get somebody to be like, look, you need to take responsibility and take accountability. This is on you and your actions, and once they're able to embrace that, then it will become something very empowering. Right? And you're in control as much as possible. Even a lot of things are out of control.
Yeah. At the same time, it is tough if you are in a bit of a rut and and a bit of a downward spiral. You might need someone to pull you out there, and that's when you stop doing the big things, right? And I think that's when you do really need to check on the players and stuff like that, because they can at the end of the day pull you out of this downward spiral. And like for me, that last previous injury is, I think when I am really struggling, I do start journaling a lot more. I'll write a daily journal. So I end up with injuries, I find I have more time. I'm not on the field training, I'm like in the gym 3 times a day. And then apart from that, I'm like, okay, how do I fill my time? It used to be video games, and now I'm like, don't really like those anymore. So now I kind of journal, and I reflected on that month in a podcast the other day, and just having a look through those days where I was really struggling and reading it back. It's like, wow, it's quite cool seeing just the small breakthroughs I had. I went from not being able to do a push-up for me, which was I probably could do 100 something before that. And then I can do one. I was like, this is crazy. What the hell?
Yeah.
And just then a month later, I was able to do one push-up. And it's these small sort of breakthroughs kind of slowly pulled me out of this poor bout of mental health. And which obviously originates from me not being able to do this thing in golf. Yes, it's about how we combat that. And as I said, it's definitely, don't push your friends and your family away. Just let them in and try to help you at the end of the day. So be positive as well. And be patient. Time heals.
Patience, definitely. Okay, so let's see. Another question I had too is within your, I guess, respective roles, spaces, has there been a shift you found in how people, given, I guess you guys are all very open about talking about this, and I think one of the big things is around peer-to-peer, somebody is able to be more vulnerable if you invite that, and so have you seen or felt a shift when you guys have felt a bit more vulnerable to people? And I know, Hugo, earlier you were talking about how that's changed maybe within your years being on the men's rugby team. I don't know if you want to share with...
Yeah, I think rugby definitely in the men's game, was always, as you said, a macho game, and no one spoke about their feelings, and it was definitely much taboo. And in the last 5-10 years, there's been a massive shift, and I think the shift has been a lot of it down to just the content and just the speaking about it more than anything, and seeing other athletes you admire speaking about it, your idols speaking about it. Johnny Wilson sharing his troubles about his mental health even after winning World Cup final. I think all of this free access to information is fantastic. It's exactly what we're doing here is sharing how we feel, and when we're out on those, when we're out on highs, and I guess what we did to get in and out of it. But I know, for example, our team, there's 14-year-olds up to 30-year-olds. Like, it's quite a mixed bag of age groups, and we foster a sort of culture where we like, you know, everyone's got a voice. You know, if you want to say something, you can say something, and that comes from, you know, a lot of team bonding and just like the older guys trying to constantly speak to the young guys, make them feel comfortable. You know, at the end of the day, team's only as good as, you know, its weakest link, and we know that as more of a senior players group. So, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone's aiming towards achieving one goal. And like, the sooner we realise that, you know, there's not one route there, but the more income we can be down here, and the better we can build a bunch of men, I think the better we'll perform as a team. So we definitely encourage like massive openness across the squad, whatever it may be. And I know that my hobbies and things I do outside of rugby, I'll get stick for, but you know what? I don't care. So don't take anything personally as well. That's quite a big one.
Yeah. And for you, Jen, because you work with, you know, I'm assuming all sorts of people, all sorts of ages. Yeah. When you coach them, obviously it's personal training, but I'm sure there's a huge, you know, you ask how they're feeling, and yeah, it's very
Right, not make it sound cheesy. It really is there's so much substance with it, because people are coming and it's probably the time where they are the most vulnerable outside, you know, their family, where they feel comfortable going into a space and doing that. And there have been a number of times where I've had clients come in and you ask them how they're doing, and they just break down and cry, and we go and have a coffee, because, you know, it's life. Let's talk about it. That's going to be far more productive and beneficial than trying to get for a workout when you're already feeling emotionally depleted, right? So it is, you know, I think. Sure. Okay.
We have no clue. I mean, I'm sitting here since 10 minutes.
You're gonna lip read? No, okay. Kidding. Yeah.
We have the same thing. We all looking at that.
Okay, no problem.
Reading your web of that one.
Just with, as a personal trainer, dealing with people from all walks of life coming into the gym, feeling very vulnerable. Not all the time are they up to working out. That's sometimes, you know, when you feel like you're hanging on by a thread and somebody asks you if you're okay, and then all of a sudden you lose it. That's happened a number of times. So just creating a safe space for people. I think a lot of times when people are struggling in their mental health, and I know this from my own personal experience, is that you feel so isolated, you feel very alone. So to help people understand that what they're going through, that you can empathize, that there is some relatability in a way. I'm not saying that, you know, I've walked your shoes or anything like that, but that in some way we've all experienced similar emotions. So just hopefully getting people to not feel so alone and not feel so isolated, and that can help them open up a little bit and share a bit. And like you said, that then perpetuates this, you know, healing space for them to hopefully feel better.
yeah.
Is that
The strapline for our charity is actually, if there's one, there's two. So, like, no matter what you're going through, there is somebody else in the world who has had a similar experience. Nowhere near as isolated as you think you are. And I'd say to anybody who is thinking about sharing their story, don't underestimate the power of sharing. I think a lot of people do a lot of comparisons. It's like, well, I've not had it as bad as you, so who am I to speak about these things? But like, take that permission, because I guarantee there's someone who's listening and they go, okay, like, this person's had this happen, they're prepared to speak about it. And I think even with your friends, like, self-disclosure, I didn't used to do it. I used to hide everything, isolate myself. But what I've noticed is the more I have spoken and been very, not just about the kind of softer end of mental health, but the more like hardcore stuff, the more people have identified me as like, okay, they're like, about what's going on, and they've been there, they can hear me. So yeah, don't underestimate the power of sharing.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, like in my personal experience, why, you know, like I feel sometimes I really want to help my friends, and sometimes I feel like I don't know what the best way it is like to help them. So is there anything you can say about that? Like if somebody's coming to you,
Yep. Yeah, sure. So, like, first and foremost, I'd say check in regularly. It's not enough to do it once. And you can feel quite discouraged if someone's not receptive to you having that conversation. You think, oh, well, they're fine, like, I'll just leave it. If you've got something in your head which is saying, like, no, I think something's going on, and that goes back to what you said earlier about knowing your peers and your teammates, just be more persistent and patient with the person, revisit it again. Then if they do share with you, it's about really listening. I don't know how much we really do that in life. Like, we're listening to have our turn to talk. And we don't have to agree with someone to listen to them, but this might be the first time they've articulated their story, and just giving them that space, like staying out of judgment, not rushing to give advice unless they ask for it, not looking for solutions. Like, it's well-meaning. Like, we see someone in pain, we help them, we love them, but it doesn't always help the person to go straight into solution mode. And then trying to get them out of the cycle, like what Hugo was talking about, the cycle, and try something new to break that. And then in addition, like if they're open to it, can we collaborate together to find support for you? So how that looks could be offering to go to the doctors with them for the first time, practicing having a conversation they might have with their boss or their coach. It might look like, let's look for some resources together. How can we work together to support you through this, as opposed to it being what do you need to do for you to feel better? So it takes the responsibility completely away from themselves. Those are some things I would say to try as we run.
Yeah, oh, that's amazing. Okay, so last question, since Hong Kong is home, I'm assuming, and what, if there is anything, would you like there to change or grow in this space around mental well-being, mental health in Hong Kong? So maybe I'll start with you and then...
Yeah, for sure. So I think my perception so far as a relatively new person to Hong Kong is that mental health is quite medicalized here, and it's viewed as like a relationship between like a clinician and a patient. And how I'd like that to change is for us to reframe mental health, mental ill health, mental illness as a community issue that we can all work together to solve. Because ultimately, it's not just a diagnosis which has got someone to that place. There's lots of things which go on in our day-to-day life, just small repetitive things that harm our well-being that we just don't, which is like nothing to see here, like nothing to address. So I think for me, it's like reframing it as a community, as valid and required as medical intervention. That's not what makes it just with that. Like there's multiple things and layers of
Yeah, I think the community thing is huge for me. That's something we're really lucky to have down in Sheffield. Is, you go past everyone in Sheffield and everyone says good morning and everyone's checking in on each other constantly. So it's something I probably don't really think about too much. But yeah, I think as an athlete, and we spoke about earlier, it's probably a little bit more support we could have as athletes. Maybe we do have access to sports psychologists, but perhaps even better access to it, because I just think it's different areas. And it's obviously great what you're doing with Stan from By the Waves, because starting that conversation is the first step of doing it. I know it helps me, but as you said, there's not one, there's always someone else. So listening to other people's stories about their family with their own challenges, that from just put things in perspective for me. I think just like better access in general to sports psychologists would be fantastic.
I think education, as you mentioned, just more awareness of understanding mental wellness. Maybe mental illness already as a term creates stigma because you're saying somebody is unwell, but education on the spectrum of mental wellness, and that there is a spectrum, and to have access to affordable help. I think that's important. I think we maybe lack that a little bit. We do obviously have therapists and such in Hong Kong, but from what I understand, it's quite expensive. And I think a lot of insurance doesn't cover it as well. So just to make it more accessible and affordable to the community so that it is something that can be proactively engaged in.
Okay, well, I want to take a moment to thank all of you. Thank you so much, and thank you all for joining. Sorry you guys couldn't hear that well. I just wanted to open up if you guys have any questions to ask our panelists.
Repeat the combo, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Apart from that.
Oh
Yes.
With 7 million people, you think that would be no except you isolate yourself. The concerns that must be good or confident not reaching out. So, you know, the doctors, I suppose, is working with confidence, soon you reach out and these arrangements. But it's up to you to put muscles or the muscles having no confidence. It's really what you show us. Or isolate yourself only because you have low energy, you'll find the chance in you have a free choice to build confidence. It's very focused on confident policy for now. Basically, recipes probably
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, unity, right?
And we all like each other. So inspired things. Probably nothing. And the way that we build the muscles in top straighteners. It's fun.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is right, but I think what I'd also counter that in saying is that we need to be better at reaching in. So there's a lot of like reach out when you're struggling, reach out when you're struggling. I think there's too much emphasis put on the people around when that, because realistically, many people, they're not going to do that when they're in a really dark place. I know from myself, so often it takes someone having the confidence and having the patience to reach in and say to you, like, I've seen these things, I'm feeling concerned, like what's going on. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, building self-confidence is like great for efficacy and mental health. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the, in the context of sport, that's where that empowerment can be bred from, right? You engage in sports, you see progress, you overcome challenges, and that makes you feel more confident, feel more empowered, and then you're more inclined to put yourself out there, I guess, and create your community. Yeah.
Strong body, if you're all fit, strong body, strong mind. But if you have a nice body, but more sluggish, obviously your mind seems for when you work hard, you learn to be disciplined, you learn to be focused, and so then you have more things. So more you that feel they don't really know they're
Yeah, it works.
Any other questions? Or comments? Nope. Okay, we also have these leaflets that have a mental health toolkit. So different resources. It'll also be on Instagram. So one of the big things is obviously talking about it, and normalizing conversation is a big step. But for people that want and need more tools and resources to know where to get them. So if you guys need, we have a few here. And like I said, it'll also be on Instagram link. So thank you again. There's another panel in Cantonese at 6. So if you guys want to stay and We'll try to speak louder.
Yeah.
I know.
I know.
Yes, thank you guys.
Thank you.